If you did not hear the news earlier this week, I think there was a clip from Paul St. Pierre Plamondon of the PQ announcing, I guess this would be chapter one of what they call their Blue Book, which in essence outlines how Quebec would look or how it would be on the international stage if and when it becomes an independent country, nation. First of all, that's kind of interesting in and of itself, given everything that's going on. The PQ, of course, have been leading in recent polls. Yes, the election is still a year away. And no, most people don't want to support the idea of a referendum, which is basically plank one of the PQ's platform. So why go to this extent? Let's try to find out. Pascal Paradis is the PQ MNA for Jean-Talon. He is on the line. Monsieur Paradis, thanks for being here this afternoon.
Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Let's start with you explaining to our listeners what exactly, what is a Blue Book? What does it mean? What does it set out to do?
So Paul St. Pierre Plamondon, our party leader, promised Quebecers that in a book called the Blue Book, the PQ would outline what would like a sovereign Quebec, an independent Quebec. So we are true to our promise. So we released one of the chapters last week pertaining to international relations. So that's a vision of what we could achieve, what we could be, and how we could prosper as an independent country. In this case, participating to the concert of nations, opening to the world, and having our own diplomacy and defending our own commercial interests at the international level.
So as I understand it, at least from what I read in Le Devoir, this would involve opening up embassies in more countries. There are Quebec embassies, by the way, now in other countries, but you're talking about potentially doubling that number?
Well, for the time being, they're not embassies because we are not an independent country. So our diplomacy depends on the Canadian diplomacy, whose interests sometimes are not the same than our interests in Quebec. So we do have a network of delegations, foreign representations in approximately 20 countries. And so what we're saying is after the next election, if Quebecers are putting their trust in the Parti Québécois, which we hope they will do, we will immediately start a process in doubling our network of representations. And after a yes vote at the referendum, then these would be transformed into embassies.
Okay. And I want to ask something else that I believe is in here as well. One of the ideas is to eventually or at some point join NATO and NORAD. Is that correct?
Well, it's basically saying that Quebec would notify multilateral agencies and commercial partners that we want to succeed, we want to be the successor state in these agreements. So it's basically saying that we would be a country or becoming a country in a democratic process, and we would look for stability at the international level. And it's also remembering everybody that contrary to what some federalists are saying, that any process leading to a new country brings chaos, it is not the case. International law and state practice both want the same thing, stability. This is good for commercial relationship. This is good for geopolitical interests. And that's basically what we're explaining in this chapter of the Blue Book.
Okay. But again, with respect to my question specifically about NATO, for example, the article I'm reading says Quebec, would request the day after a yes victory in a referendum that Quebec be granted a place in international military alliances like NATO, and it expects a positive response. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Where we now, if I understand it, in order to become a NATO member, in order to become a NATO member, right? There's a cost share formula tied to that, right? Which comes off gross national income. So where are we getting the money to pay for that exactly?
Well, we're already paying our share. It's not like there's this belief that the federal government is gifting Quebec of the investments it's making, for instance, in the military. It's not the case. We're paying for our share. And in a previous document that we released in 2023 pertaining to the finances of a sovereign Quebec, we explain that we would get back our share of the funds we transfer to the federal government, and we would invest those. in our responsibilities, in our competences as a country. So it's the same for any of the sectors that are taken care of by the federal government right now. We are paying for these, and we would get the money back. We're sending 90 billions a year in taxes to the federal government. So with the money we're saving in the doubling that the federal government is making in so many sectors like healthcare, like education, these are provincial, Quebec competences, and still the federal government is spending a lot, wasting a lot of money. So we will be saving, we will prosper, and we will be able to invest in our own responsibilities as a country.
Okay, with respect to those provincial jurisdictions that you're mentioning here, they've come up often. I think people understand them, like healthcare, et cetera. With respect to NATO, though, NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. We're still part of the North Atlantic, even if Quebec does, in fact, separate. Are we just changing 4 quarters for $1 here? What difference would there be if Quebec was in NATO independently or as part of Canada? I don't understand what the difference would be.
Well, we would be speaking for ourselves. We would be advocating for our own interest. We would be a partner.
Well, okay. How are your own interests any different in terms of being protected as part of an alliance from Canada? Exactly.
Well, when we're talking about defense and protecting the territory, of course, there are presently common interests from Canada, from Quebec, from the United States, which is why we have regional alliances. And these interests would basically remain the same. We agree. But then it's the same thing as saying, okay, so why are other countries speaking by themselves within NATO, within any multilateral treaty? There is a merit in any country, for any nation to speak for itself. It is the same thing when it regards defense and security as it is for commercial interests, for other treaty interests. And what happens at the international level has impacts on the daily life of Quebecers. So speaking for ourselves, representing ourselves is really an essential tool in 2025 as ever in history.
Okay. I'm reading as well. This is interesting as well. So Paul St. Pierre Plamondon said he wants Quebec's image to be, quote, I'm quoting, less arrogant and much more down-to-earth, unquote, than that of Canada. What does that mean?
Well, I think Quebec already exists, as we were saying, at the international level, through international cooperation, to our network of delegations. And I think we are known for our pragmatism, the way that we do not impose. We are deal makers. We have a long history at proposing and being at the forefront of international advances in mediation, in peacemaking. And that's exactly like the trademark, I think, that Quebec would bring at the international level, less in giving lessons to others, but really in participating to the fostering of democracy, of the rule of law. We think that's the distinct voice, the very own voice that Quebec could have at the international scene.
So you say not a history of conflict, promoting peace. And from what I read as well, that would mean that the Quebec office, or the delegation, if you will, in Tel Aviv in Israel, could not operate under the current conditions given what's going on in Gaza. So you would pull out, or you would not have an effective office there as what? A way to protest what's happening?
No, it's effectiveness. So we said other parties have called for the antenna or the bureau to close. Our view is that it was not a good idea to open it and to develop its activities, commercial activities, scientific activities, within the context of the conflict, that the government of Quebec should have waited. We are still of the same opinion.
So I'm trying to understand. You're suggesting then that until what time?
Our representatives at the Bureau of Tel Aviv should be called back in Quebec until the conditions are proper for the development of the bureau there.
And what are those conditions?
Well, we have called many times at the National Assembly with other parties. We have joined our voices to call for an end to the conflict and for peace once again to prevail there. So that's part of the conditions, not having a live conflict on the ground.
Well, okay. If that's the case, it's you may be another 100 years before you're able to go back, if that's how you're going to define whether you go there and open business or not, don't you think? I mean, there's no guarantee of peace in that region. That's the kind of place it is in the world.
It's true. It's true. There's a context. There's a historic context. But still, after the terrorist attack that we have condemned in October 2023, the situation has changed on the ground, and we think that the context was not proper for the development of the bureau there.
So are you taking what seems to me a pro-Palestinian position here?
Absolutely not. We are taking a pro-peace, and we have always been in favor of a two-state solution. And this is independent for whatever was said last week. This is our position since 2023 on the present conflict in Gaza.
Okay, I'm running out of time. I have to leave it at that. I hope we'll have a chance. By the way, you said the Blue Book is going to be roughly 20 chapters. Is that right?
Exactly. So we have a long way to go. Going to be releasing parts of it until the beginning of 2026.
Okay. Well, I hope we'll have another chance to chat. I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pascal Paradis, PQMNA for Jean-Talon, outlining Chapter 1, at least the beginning, of the Blue Book.
Introducing Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio. Hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
Join me for an insider look on a wild ride through 40 years of global rock and roll.
Bryan Adams Radio. Now available on the free iHeartRadio app. Or ask your smart speaker to play Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio.
Who's ready to rock?
Kids wanna rock.